Republican Cory Mills of Florida, for his take on all of this. Representative, thank you so much for coming back on the show. We appreciate it. So, of course, Israel is in crisis right now, okay? They need the U.S.'s help desperately. This idea of tying aid to Israel with, of course, IRS enforcement and limiting how much money can be spent on IRS enforcement is, of course, a non-starter for Democrats in the Senate. It's an obvious non-starter for the White House. How do we reconcile that?
Well, look, at the end of the day, the one thing, if you ask the American people that they want, it is not 87,000 more IRS agents. It is not continuing to utilize a weaponized DOJ or utilizing weaponized areas of government to target Americans. We acknowledge the fact that, and we support Israel's right to its own defense. We saw the horrendous incidents that occurred in Gaza by the terrorist organization Hamas, who is obviously supported by Iran, the largest state sponsor of terror, and the geopolitical alignment of China, Russia, Iran, North Korea. So I think that it's the right call. I think that we do need to be looking at cut goes. We need to be looking at how do we fund priorities, but not increase our debt ceiling.
Congressman, knowing that it's a non-starter for Democrats, I mean, don't you at some point just have to put U.S. national security interests
the president also
above
said
politics?
That the D.C. crime bill was also a non-starter and he would veto it. The Democrats also in the Senate said that we would not support the FRA with the Fiscal Responsibility Act. We've continued to hear this rhetoric, and each time when the American people has acknowledged that this is what they want, you've seen where instead of vetoing it, as he had claimed, the president actually signed it into law. And so we need to be able to do exactly what is right for the conference and for the House of Representatives, and we'll allow the Senate and the president to answer to the American people if they so choose.
Congressman, Speaker Johnson spoke with Senate Republicans and said that he does support additional aid for Ukraine separate to this initial bill that he's hoping to get passed exclusively for Israel. He says that's not a political stunt, but we have seen the president, and now the Wall Street Journal is reporting that U.S. intel suggests that Russia's Wagner group may be providing air defense weapons for Hezbollah. President Biden has linked these two wars generally, maybe not directly. But in terms of helping an ally in Israel, if you have Russia perhaps helping its adversary, why not get that funding to both countries at once?
Well, I think that Speaker Johnson's absolutely correct in making sure that we vote on aid packages individually so that it is a member-driven, not speaker-driven, decentralized House of Representatives. This allows every single representative to vote with their convictions, their conscience, and their constituency. In some cases, constituents support more aid to Ukraine, and others they don't. They want to see oversight. They want to see the accountability. They want to see an investigation into the corruption, which has already been leaked out of Zelensky's administration. And so for others, they see where the Iron Dome is necessary to preserve and protect humanitarian lives. And so I think the right thing to do is not to try and continue to tether aid packages together, but to be able to vote on them separately. And I support Speaker Johnson's decision to do this.
Representative, just pivoting slightly, I want to talk about the staggering and really upsetting rise in just the number of anti-Semitic hate crimes in the U.S., actually really across the world right now. Jews are scared. You know, Jews who live in the United States are scared right now. You see what's happening on the streets in places like New York, even Los Angeles. You see what's happening on college campuses. It's a really difficult time. How do we address that as a society, do you think?
Well, I think that we have to stand up and understand that we won't allow and we won't condone hate of any kind. I think that that's something that we need to send a broader message on, that we won't continue to be divided in this, but we'll be unified in our message to condemn anti-Semitism as well as for other hate crimes. But I also think that we need to be very cognizant of the fact that places like TikTok and other social media has continued to drive this social and cultural revolution in our youth by poisoning and utilizing academia as well. And so it is unsafe for people to continue to be able to think that they can threaten others. We just saw this at Cornell University. We just saw this at NYU, where there's students who are literally in fear of their lives. We live in America where you should be safe to walk on the streets. You should be safe to, believe in pluralism and our idea of being able to worship in any faith, and that was covered in our Constitution. But I support one of the things that Marco Rubio said. If these individuals who are pro-Hamas, who are actually putting the risk and lives of Americans to make them feel in jeopardy, and they're on a visa and they're not American citizens, I think we should revoke their actual visa and deport them back to their home. You should not come here and go to our universities on a visa and threaten the American lives or trying to endanger and make people feel unsafe through your rhetoric where you're trying to promote a terrorist organization like Hamas.
We'll talk more about the rise in anti-Semitism later in the show, but Congressman, I do want to go back to what we heard from the president yesterday, really pressured to answer the question on whether or not he supports a ceasefire. He says he supports some sort of humanitarian pause. You were in Israel. There is increased pressure from more Democrats now. Senator Dick Durbin on our air this morning said that he calls for a ceasefire. What is your take in terms of what a ceasefire would do? Israel says that it would only embolden Hamas. How do you view this issue?
Israel is exactly right. Not only would it embolden Hamas, but it would be a victory lap for Iran, China, Russia, and North Korea. It would embolden Hassan Nasrallah out of Hezbollah. It would also do the same thing for Hadi al-Amri and Qais Khazali, and those who are part of the Iranian-backed proxy militias of Iraq. I think that what the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and the IDF are doing to exterminate Hamas and the terrorist organization that threatens the lives, not just of Israelis, but also of Palestinians, utilizing them for shields and endangering them. And I think that the risk is that when we do provide certain types of humanitarian aid, we need to be very cautious, because in the past, that humanitarian aid, these hundreds of millions and billions of dollars, has actually gone to Hamas to be able to fund these tunnel systems that are being utilized right now to attack innocent civilians. And so I do not actually think that the president is right in this. I think that we have to be very smart in limiting collateral damage and making sure that we don't endanger civilian lives. But I think that we need to eliminate these terrorist organizations, or they're going to continue to rule as they have.
Right, Congressman Cory Mills, always good to have you on the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.